5 generations in Kern County. He told me he's not a cowboy. He is a farmer. Although his family started off cattle ranching, he has now found a true love and passion for agriculture and farming in Bakersfield and Old River and even Kings County, all across the South Valley. Today, we have someone who you might have ran across his social media as he's constantly sharing about his farming experience, his family, and everything in the community. He represents farmers on so many different boards when it comes to legislation, whether it be Farm Bureau or much more that he'll make sure to fill you in on today. But today, our guest is Jason Giannelli from Old River, California. Is that the right thing, or is it Bakersfield?
You can say Bakersfield or Old River.
Is Old River its own town?
No. I mean, no.
In Bakersfield, people kind of refer to it as it is, though,
yeah,
right?
but if you look at the mailing address, it still says Bakersfield, so everything comes in as Bakersfield.
Yeah, up north you can put Frogtown, USA, and it'll end up in Angels Camp.
Really?
Yeah, it's a double standard.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so I'm going to start writing mail to you, and we're going to make the post office understand it.
Let's bring it back to the 1940s, huh?
Yeah.
Or the 1930s.
So, Jason, thanks for being on with us today. Some people might know you. You have been pretty active when it comes to policy, when it comes to agriculture. You represent farmers through in and throughout. And so for the people that don't know you, who is Jason and kind of what brought you to where you are today?
So I'm basically, my dad's side is a 4th generation. My mom's side, I'd be considered 5th generation. So I just had a love for farming since my dad and my uncle still farm to this day, our own farm. And it's a lot of row crops, but I've been out there since I was like 5, or as long as since I can remember. And so I've always had a passion for farming. I grew up at a very young age, so looking at different things and just understanding the science, watering, irrigations, and stuff like that. So I was a kid at 5, 6 years old. I was out there on top of sprinkler pipe, moving sprinkler pipe with the guys and out in carrot fields and unplugging sprinklers and doing all that type of stuff, and even starting siphoning pipe and everything else. So I've done it since I was a kid, and then all the way, my summers consisted of doing that. Other than most people go on vacation in the summer, I was on the farm. So, but yeah, and so looking back now on that, and then after college and everything else, I've been with a few different companies, and I've landed with RNG, Fanucchi, and Old River Farming Company, which we're also a family-ran operation. And we do a lot of the farming management for a lot of the dairies in Kern, and we also farm in Kings County as well. And so we're just blessed. I'm just blessed to do what I love, and it's just I'm very passionate. I try to be engaged in everything. I try to be everywhere. Like I said earlier, my problem is I can't say no. So
yeah, so you sounded like you were talking to me before. You're on a lot of board. I mean, how many board positions are you on? 5, 6, it sounded like?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, and then I do, outside of that, I probably help other organizations on stuff they need. And so I try to help everybody. If someone's a good person and I know they're really trying, I will help anybody. And when it comes to family as well, family, friends, or whatever, I try to be as representative as possible.
And you have what, two kids? I think I saw.
I have 3.
3.
Yeah.
So you have 0 time to watch a Netflix show.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I still. I mean, that's my out. Basically, is anything TV. And when I get home at night, I probably don't get home till like 8 o'clock sometimes, and I'm still working. So I just turn on the TV and just have background noise, and I'll be up till 11 o'clock at night, and I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
What did you grow up farming with your family? Were they all row crops? You said cotton a lot.
Yeah, my dad, my uncle. Yeah, I grew up growing cotton. That was basically it. Alfalfa, wheat, carrots, corn silage, those type of things. And then my dad now has a little bit. My dad and my uncle still have a little bit of almonds, but mainly they're row crop farmers through and through. So
they like life a little harder.
You could say that. Yeah, I mean, it's just. They never deviated from the plan, and I think it's just been working. So
you left the farm and came up here into Fresno then, and went to Fresno State after that?
Yeah, I went to Fresno State, and then when I got done at Fresno State, I went back home. I actually when I was going to Fresno State, I came home almost every weekend and worked and stuff. So I said school was my vacation. It was so it was like, do I sleep? I get to sleep in a little bit, and stuff like that. So, but I always joked with people like school was my vacation.
So then right after, did you go back to the family operation, or you never went back?
And I
full time, I guess.
I never went back full time. No. I worked for other various companies, and each was a great learning experience, stepping stone, and I can never be more appreciative of the opportunities I've been given and stuff. And I've learned something new at every place I was at, and those opportunities have built where I'm at today, and to be able to look at things differently, how to because everybody wants to be in their narrow box, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to look at anything out here outside of their box. So of all these different companies I worked for, it was basically farm manager positions or general manager positions and stuff. But it just gave me another perspective on how to look at things, and I got to go to different areas of California, like Imperial, and look at those type of areas too. On other companies I worked for.
But you always lived in Bakersfield.
I've always lived in
worked
Bakersfield.
there.
Yeah. So I appreciated all the knowledge that I learned about these different areas and how to look at not just what Kern County or the Central Valley brings, but outside of this Central Valley as well.
Are you on a California Farm Bureau board, or are you just at the county level on that?
Just the county level.
Okay. Never wanted to do that, or not yet, at least?
No, I don't have the time to be on the California Farm Bureau. Plus, I don't know. I might be a little bit too rambunctious for them, because it's a lot of Northern California farmers. I don't think they like Southern California too much. So,
well, most people in Bakersfield really try to say the cutoff line. They're not Southern California.
Oh, I mean,
you still do.
We're the southern end of the valley. So
I think you still do get the Disneyland discount, though.
We might. I don't know. I don't go to Disneyland, so my kids do. But I yeah, that's one place I try to stay away from. So
so you did ag business at Fresno State,
yeah.
But now you've ended up pretty much your whole career farming.
Farming, yeah.
Decided not to go the business route, really, like at a sales position or something like that.
No.
What made you want to stay true to farming?
It's because it's always a different challenge all the time, and my ADHD my brain goes 100 miles an hour, so I'm never complacent just sitting in one spot. So even sitting here, like my knees go like bouncing. So I'm always constantly moving, and that's why I love what I do, is because I get to wear so many different hats, learn so much different things. Am I the perfect farmer? No, I still mess up, and but I try to learn from those mistakes and try to better myself. But also, I have a great boss who also has just encourages those type of things. I can come to him with any idea, anything, and I try to come with him with all the numbers. Everything's ready in front. So I try to be proactive, whether it's finding new land or something or whatever it is, or trying to move water and how we move water and everything like that. So and even with our Tulare Lake Ranch, like last year, we were trying to figure out how to best manure water, and
was that ranch in the lake bottom?
Yeah.
And I'm guessing it probably went underwater.
No, it didn't.
You must be on the very edge then.
Yeah, I'm on the very west side. So we had a great neighbor in Boswell. They were very good to us, and I came up with a plan. I drew up this plan and I showed my boss, and he's like, "You came up with this?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I'm not a water engineer or anything, but I research everything. Like I can get on Google and I look at how things move, and I try to research. And it was our first year picking up this ranch, and so and with the canal systems, and it's all open ditch and everything like that. So, but I'm just blessed to be able to do that, and then also utilize connections and meet people and acquaintances to be able to make stuff happen.
It's getting hot in here, so take off. Oh, wait. Have you talked to HR Mobile yet about your heat stress compliance for summer? It is heating up around here in the Central Valley, so make sure to call HR Mobile and make sure that your employees are taken care of. So what made you want to start getting more involved on the policy side of agriculture? Some people might have seen like the primetime moment with Jesse Waters.
Yeah.
And so they might have seen that, but what made you really want to get involved in the policy side?
Well, I've always had a passion for politics. Like when I was 5 years old, my dad would be watching Rush Limbaugh's TV show, and I would be watching it with him, and I understood a little bit what he was talking about. And in second grade, I cried when Bill Clinton first got elected in 1992 when I was in second grade. So, but I've always listened to Rush Limbaugh. Even when I was a young kid, I'd be on the tractor or something, I'd be listening to Rush. But I've always had a passion for politics. The politics side, it can get nasty, but also I think I like the fact of just trying to figure things out. Whether it's Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. I can talk to anybody. But also it's like, I just try to be matter of fact, and I don't want to come to people with just a problem and just nag politicians because they have a lot on their plate, but try to come to them with a problem and a solution. That's my whole goal. Anytime I talk with any politician, anybody in Congress, whatever, I always want to have a solution. And I think that's the one thing that we lack in agriculture too, is that we're always behind the eight ball. We're always on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I get it because we have so much stuff going on. We have just trying to keep our own operations viable and going.
Yeah.
And we have families, we have everything else. But I feel like as far as I can remember being really young and just thinking like, how are we this far behind the eight ball? Like even before I was a teenager, I understood like, why are we this far behind the eight ball? And but I feel like I want to try to put agriculture on offense always. And I think that's the thing that agriculture is missing. It doesn't matter if it's at the state level or the federal level. We're always behind the eight ball.
Why do you think that is? In my perspective of it, we see organizations like probably the largest organization in California for lobbying for farmers is Farm Bureau. But it seems like maybe we're putting some PAC dollars behind there. We're paying our membership fees, but it doesn't seem like that many people are investing their time into going to the Capitol. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I feel like also, they all have a purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also people like Farm Bureau, they're always looking into their own box.
Mm-hmm.
They're never looking outside the scope of they're always looking in this box. So like if it's going to affect almond farmers or pistachio farmers, but it doesn't affect row crop farmers, they're like, oh no, we got to be against this because it's going to affect the almond farmers. Well, how does it affect the row crop guys? How do we instead of just trying to come to an agreement on where we can cross that middle, it's always one side or the other. So I'll give you an example. So I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago, they wanted to pass a 1 cent fertilizer tax.
Mm-hmm.
And Farm Bureau was against it from the very beginning. And I'm looking at them, and it's all based on water quality, right? Because to be able to water in disadvantaged communities or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they wanted to pass, instead of the farmer taking all the brunt of it, they wanted to pass a 1 cent tax. Well, all Farm Bureau saw was a tax, and they were not willing to back it. But if you went back, but since they didn't back it, now the farms and farmers are on the hook themselves for making that water quality better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but they weren't seeing the bigger picture of it all. Instead of making it one big pool, now everyone's back on the sideline and responsible individual.
So that did not pass.
That did not pass.
Okay. Yeah. Because I know, we have fertilizer. I do the fertilizer tax every 3 months, every quarter.
Yep.
I don't even know what the rate is today.
Yeah.
I just pay it. It's pretty minimal.
Right.
But in all reality, I don't know what those dollars even go to.
And nobody does. So, and that's the other thing I ask about. So you look at our water right now. I'll just jump into water right now. It's just, so we've been paying our 100% of our allocation, whether it's state, federal, for forever, In the last 24 years, I think we've gotten an average of 40% of our water
Yeah.
for surface water, not groundwater, just surface water. So that's like I always try to compare it. I'm like, that's like somebody paying 100% of their house and only getting 40% of it built and saying, good luck.
But so then what legislation or what lobbying are they doing to help these situations? I mean, it feels like nothing really. It feels like our water is getting worse, our allocations.
It's getting worse, but also you're looking at the state board and DWR changed the parameters, and they moved the goalpost on our water too from the Delta that we're supposed to be getting, because instead of now blaming a fish, they're blaming water quality. And so, but what no one's telling you is there's a water quality issue because of the sewer systems that are still leaking into the bay, into the Delta from San Francisco,
from the cities.
And because their infrastructure is so old and everything, but instead of them taking those dollars that nobody knows where did they collect sewer fees off all those homes, where are they going?
It sounds like right now we don't know where most of the money in California is going.
Oh, exactly.
in the last few weeks.
They don't even know where the money went for homelessness on $16 billion. So and the other thing I look at too is you have a government that tells you that they can change the weather because of climate change if they tax you more, but they can't fix homelessness. Why would we give somebody a free checkbook over here to do that when we know the climate's always changing in California? Mm-hmm. It's just how you manage our water and how you manage our resources.
Well, it seems like the policy conversation continues to change. I just read that now Newsom's looking at electric car vehicle tax, because gas tax funds have gone down now because people have switched.
Yep, we all knew that was going to happen.
And now he wants to put a battery tax in there every time they go charge up, or however a Tesla works. And he's going to increase gas taxes most likely this next year.
Go, what, 25 cents or 50 cents or something?
I think it was 54-cent increase, which we're already at 5+. On farm, there's some legislation around that, but it's still killing.
I mean, when you're still paying over $4 a gallon for diesel, on farm diesel, it's still it's killer. And right now we're dealing with low commodity prices and low, and so, I mean, that's the other thing that people don't understand is that farmers are price takers. We don't set our own prices.
Yeah, it's whatever on contracts or
it's whatever the market's going to be. I mean, you can go look at. Most of the time we're planting a crop and we don't even know what we're going to get at the end. We're just hoping that we're preparing for the worst, wanting the best, and hoping to come out somewhere like right in the middle, or maybe a little bit less in the middle, as long as we can pay everything back.
Yeah, we're just hoping we're cash flow positive.
Cash flow positive.
Whether that's 2% or 14%, but right now it's much closer to that.
That margin is very slim. So, but also I think that with the water and how policies are made, it's also based on people that it's all about feel good. It's not based on true science. And so when you do everything by feel good emotion, everything else just becomes scrambled, and nobody wants to pay attention to anything else because everyone just looks at their little box. Mm-hmm. Nobody's looking out here how it affects everything down the road, because no one else is talking about Sigma is that we might have somewhat of a groundwater problem, but we wouldn't have the extreme overpumping that we have now if we just had our flows.
Yeah, if we had allocation.
If we had our 100% of our allocation. And now you're looking at and now everybody wants to become an expert in water. You have all these water groups. You have everybody's a water group. You got, it's just, I think we get wrapped up in our own little worlds, and everybody wants to start their own water group. Everybody wants to start this and that and this association and this, and it's just, look at how many groups have come out over the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. What have they actually done? That's and when I ask people, so when people go to join associations, farm groups, or whatever, I'm like, before you sign, don't just write it. Ask, what have you done?
Give me your track record.
Yeah, give me your track record. Also, and I get it. We don't. And the excuse is, oh, we don't have the majority or we don't have the legislators to be able to make change. No, if there's a will, there's a way.
Mm-hmm.
That's how farming is. If you have the will, you will find a way to make it.
The only sound you hear when Caddyshack's in your field blowing up those squirrels. Call Caddyshack if you got a squirrel problem today. What? So you are on the Water Association board, correct?
Yes.
Is that all of California, or are you just in
Just Kern County.
County? Just
Kern County.
So where in those meetings or with that association, where are they at with SGMA? Is there ways?
So what we do as Water Association, we're not so much political.
Mm-hmm.
We're just educational.
Okay.
So what we do is we have an annual summit in March every year, and we bring different water speakers throughout the state, whether they're policy, whether, from all different spectrums.
Yeah.
And we try to engage, whether it's people it's not just people in Kern County that come down, it's people from Sacramento, it's people from all over the state that come to this summit. And so just try to give an idea of what these people are saying and these policymakers, and we have people from the state board and DOER that come down, and the Bureau of Reclamation. And then also we have farmers' perspectives on panels and everything like that. But it also gives a chance because it's not just about agriculture, but you're also dealing with oil and water. You're dealing with development. You're dealing with, and then you got bankers. You have all these other resources that nobody thinks about, all these other entities that nobody thinks about. So it gives a better perspective on when a banker's looking at giving a loan, like on SGMA. I mean, it's tough to be a banker right now, you know, because you don't know, how do you give a loan out when you don't know what the water situation is on what loan you're giving out, and your property values are decreasing right now. So how guys that need operating loans based on the value of their land, it's hard to make that up.
Yeah. If they're out of water, their value tanks.
Yeah. Their value, and you have no operating loan.
Yeah.
So to be able to make your cash flow throughout the year, right?
Yeah.
So that it's hard to make those decisions. And so it gives a different perspective on how to look at things.
What are so it sounds like you're more in tune with just agriculture than you're in with oil and all, land development. I mean, what are their thoughts on things like SGMA?
With oil, I like a lot of people, when it was passed in 2014, I think a lot of people had their heads in the sand, but I think they're starting to pay attention more. Mm-hmm. I mean, oil's kind of a little bit left out of it a little bit right now, depending on your basin, I think also. Mm-hmm. But the thing is with oil right now, their big thing is carbon capture injection, right?
Okay. Explain that more for people that would want to understand that.
So what they want to do is they want to build, so they want to take CO2 and they want to inject it in our farmland. Mm-hmm. So, and so I've talked with oil. I mean, especially the big companies that are pushing carbon capture. And the thing I ask is, what is because what they want to do is they want to lease your soil underneath.
Okay.
Because they have a right to the minerals underneath your surface, mm-hmm. but they don't have a right to the land itself.
Okay.
So they're trying to lease the pore space underneath our ground. Well, and some of our areas we have large pore spaces. Well, here's the other thing: we have large pore spaces, 7,000, 8,000. They want to inject it 7,000 or more feet down deep. Well, the thing I ask is, well, we have large pore spaces, but what else do we have? We have earthquakes. We have natural subsidence, no matter what. I don't care what anybody says about subsidence. The valley's always had subsidence. Mm-hmm. So because we have earthquakes, we have everything. So my question to them is, if it's so good and we're taking carbon and we're injecting it into our ground, it's a liquid carbon. Over time, what does it become? And it takes up. And how do you guarantee that it stays in that plume and it doesn't impede someone else's property right?
I'm gonna guess there's no answers.
You can't. They claim they know, but but they don't know. So I've seen I've seen the PowerPoints. I've talked with all the engineers and stuff, but none of them can tell me like what happens in 100 years, because it's a liquid carbon. So what happens to the liquid when it over time, when you're underneath that much pressure, becomes a rock. So you're taking up that pore space. So and in my mind, and I've never got a clear answer on it. So if it becomes a rock form, I don't care if it's 100 years. I don't care if it's 200 years. I'm going to be dead. I get it, but I'm not. It doesn't matter. I want to leave this earth better than I was brought into it. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want the sixth generation.
Yeah,
to see
I want the next generation to see it. So, I asked him. I go, if it turns into a rock form, wouldn't it come up? Because the way everything comes into the earth, you would think that would just get pushed up. And I ask, I go, over time, would that impede my aquifer? They say no, but you can't. I don't know how you can back that up.
Yeah, there's no actual data or science showing it. It's never been done before.
No, and their other data is that they show is, well, we do it here in the Midwest, we do it on these other areas. That's great. Different topography, different land, everything's different. So nothing, and the other thing is, what does it do to the land value over time? Can I, if I'm in an area, because they're trying to sign up land that's out of like development reach and stuff like that, but you don't know, you know what I mean?
There's always annexed.
There's always So there's a lot of variables, and so, but nobody can answer that question. Is what can I do with my land at that point? Do I have to sell it for agriculture? Can I sell it for development? Can I do that?
Yeah, can I make it commercial? Whatever it is,
whatever
I can
want to
maximize my ROI.
Yeah, exactly. So if I wanted to sell it later on in the future, nobody can answer that question.
Wow. I mean, what do the development companies say?
No one. Well, I was told by some engineers, or not engineers, but like scientists who are very heavily involved in this, is that, well, we need legislation to be able to. I'm like, you're not going to get that in California, right? Yeah. You're not going to get that. But I know in different aspects, in different ways, that even if the county itself created an ordinance said you can, let's say they say, oh, you could sell it for commercial, but you can't sell it for residential. Well, what's the difference? Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, if the county decides to change that ordinance because it's not a state law, how do I know that? If somebody else comes in different to change that policy, how that's going to affect everybody's ROI on their return on their land?
Yeah, because it could pass now, but then be taken out of legislation years down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no long-term protection for anyone.
No long-term protection. And then the other thing is, if no one talks about, is that in the land leases, they say that you're covered and everything else, which is great. You're covered. But what happens if a company files for BK? Mm-hmm. And there's a problem. So there's no identification clauses in those land leases. So, but nobody, and this is me just thinking outside the box. And like I said, I'm not looking out for my own interests. I'm looking out for everybody's interests. Mm-hmm. If people want to do it, great. I'm not against anything. I just want people to have all of the information in front of them.
Yeah. I mean, are those leases right now, they look good financially to some growers?
Some growers, they look good financially, but which is fine. I mean, if people want to do it, private property. Yeah. I'm all about it. You know what I mean? But like I said, I don't want it to come back and bite ag later on down the road. Mm. And then we're pinning oil and ag against each other. And because that's not what needs to happen. We got to work together.
Those are the two hardest industries that get out-regulated in this state.
And trust me, I love oil. I want to pump more oil. You know what I mean? And stuff. I'm all about it. I mean, oil industry needs anything. I'm right there backing them and everything. And so, but I just want landowners, whether you're a farmer or not, you're just a landowner. I want you to have all the information that you're not thinking of.
Yeah.
And so, and people have their lawyers look at it and everything else, but sometimes lawyers only see what's in front of them, saying, "Oh yeah, you're covered" or whatever, because they're not looking outside the scope.
Yeah, the check looks good and the wording looks right, legality wise.
Right.
But not 100 years from now, and we don't know what changes.
We don't know what changes. So so the other thing that they brought up was, the EPA approves it. Well, the EPA approved TCP 123 at one point in time too. And look where we're at now.
Yeah, is that the one? I think I just saw a Netflix movie on that. Is that the one from DuPont?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So it's basically that. And so it's like, so who's going to take, and we know the government's not going to take responsibility for anything.
It's going to end up on the companies.
It's going to end up on the companies or the landowners if there's something that comes back on it.
Wow. What can growers do right now for water efficiency?
So we're already doing it. I mean,
we've invested a lot in infrastructure.
And everything else. I mean, when it comes to water efficiency, this is how I look at water efficiency is, yes, we're saving water, but I've done drip alfalfa, right?
Mm-hmm.
So compared to flood irrigation, I get more yield, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do use, but whether I use 60 inches on the drip and I'm getting 18 tons a year on cutting or 16 tons.
Yeah.
Or I'm using 6 inches and I'm getting 13 or 14 tons in a season on a cutting. Just because the 60 inches in a year or whatever it maxes out, just because I got a higher tonnage, I'm still using the same amount of water. The consumptive use is still there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing that people don't understand about efficiencies and looking at things is, in my opinion, is yes, we're always trying to be better. And I think the other reason too is that I tell people all the time is like, what has changed in the last 20 years that with our water situation, other than regulations and not getting our flows or getting our allocations? I said we've changed how our irrigation patterns. This valley, I mean, in Kern County, we would everybody grew wheat and you'd be irrigating all the time,
Yeah.
And you might, and every time you flood irrigate, you might be putting on 5 inches of water, but the rest of the 3 inches or maybe 2 inches is going back into the aquifer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that nobody understands. And that could be also the reason why we had more fog and we had all the, you know what I mean? So I think a lot what we do with our patterns, it has changed. I'm not saying it's that we should all go back to flood irrigation. No, I'm saying that whatever works for other people's operation is if it works for your operation, great. So, and that's how I look at things.
There's you still need a certain amount of feet or inches to grow a certain amount of crop.
Exactly.
And put a yield, and especially right now, you want that yield to be high to try to be profitable.
Exactly, because people, and that's the other thing when it comes to crops is you're either all in or you're not. I always tell people when I go, when the price is low, I want to maximize more yield as I can, so that way and everything has a cost to it, right?
Yes.
And a cost benefit and a cost, but at the same time, it's like, that's why when lettuce is low, like I always laugh when people, like if the box per lettuce is low and people are like, oh, just they start giving away lettuce for free or whatever. I'm like, no, just sell it. You know what I mean? Because you want as much yield as possible, so that way you can maximize that profit. Or whatever little profit you're going to make off of it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that plays into a lot of what we see of like food insecurity. If we have it, sell it.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that going back to water and Sigma 2 and is we have it goes back to the engagement side. It's like we have a lot of landowners that had their heads in the sand and not engaging early on because they didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, they didn't know what it was going to lead to now.
They thought their GSAs were just going to take care of it, and but now people are getting into like a different factor of like, oh my gosh, we gotta whether you're a mom and pop or you know what I mean, whether you're 40-acre farm or a 1,000-acre farm, you have to be engaged. It doesn't matter. Or even if you're a 5-acre farm, it doesn't matter. You have to be engaged. Are we all going to agree on everything? No. But is there a middle ground that everyone can see that that we're all just trying to survive? Yes. At the same time, I don't want to see anybody go broke. I don't want to see anybody, because also the other thing is I work really hard because I've seen what my dad and my uncle did, through hard times, and I don't ever want to go back to that, and I don't ever want to ever have to see that again. And also what these regulators don't understand too is that farmers have the highest percentage of suicide.
Yeah, it's the number one industry
outside of military.
Yeah,
and so the reason if you weren't raised in it, it's hard to understand that, because you work so hard every day, and you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears, and you're putting every drop you have into everything you're trying to do to make everything better. And whether it's your own farm or over here for your family or advocacy, whatever it is, you're trying to make it all work.
Mm-hmm.
And when the farm and when your lifeblood fails, you feel like you failed as a person.
You recently just did a post on this, I think, right?
Yeah.
I mean, can you explain that a little bit? I read it a little bit a few days ago when you did the post, but I mean, that kind of went into the mental health side of it.
Yeah. So I'm big on mental health too, because I'll be frank about it. I mean, I'm open about it. So about 6 years ago, I was on the verge of suicide.
Wow.
Not because we were financial or anything like that. It's just I had so much on my plate, and
Mm-hmm.
But also a blessing came out of all that, was that I found out, and I lived with it my whole life, and I didn't know it until that point, because I just thought I didn't go to war. I just pushed forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason why I should feel a certain way.
Yeah.
Because my parents had given me a great life. They worked really hard, and I've seen a lot. But one day I just broke down, because I just wasn't. I feel like I was just drowning.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I figured out that I was diagnosed with severe depression and severe ADHD. And so that was a big pullback for me on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so once I realized that, and then I started realizing how to function more so with it, because I look back, and when I was even at Fresno State, when my roommates were gone, I would shut her in.
Yeah, you felt alone, and you would stay that way.
Yeah, I'd stay that way. So, but I didn't know why. You know what I mean? I was like, I don't want to go anywhere, or do anything. And it wasn't that I was a hermit. You can ask any of my friends. I'm always out. I'm talkative. I'm very personable and everything like that. But that's the other reason why I like to stay busy, is because, and my brain's always clicking 100 miles an hour, it's just, people don't understand is, I feel like I'm here for a bigger meaning than just farming, but outside of farming, and being a better, whether advocacy, a dad, or whatever, a brother, a son. I want to do well in all those things.
So what was that? What was that post that you did last week?
So
it was a story about another farmer, right?
Yeah. So I don't know who the person was. I just happened to see it, and I thought, man, this really spoke. So it was basically a farmer wife. She saw her husband working, and basically not criticizing, but nagging him because he's not here for this, and that. But every night he was coming home late,
mm-hmm.
and working, and all he did, is work. And he would come home, and he'd be sitting at dinner by himself because everybody else had eaten or gone to bed. And she realized at that moment, and as one night when he was sitting at the dinner table, their daughter was on the table and talking, younger daughter, and just talking, and they're engaging and stuff, and they're goofing around. But at the same time, he's eating dinner, and she realizes how tired he looked, and just realizes that the reason he's working that hard is not just for himself, but it's for his family.
So I'm guessing you've been involved with, I know Farm Bureau a few years back had a big campaign around mental health and farming. Right. Were you heavily involved in that?
I wasn't involved with it, but I did repost a lot of that stuff, and I engaged with it. But
mm-hmm.
I wasn't involved personally with it, but I get it. And so, and that's why I'm passionate about farming. And So, and not just farming, but I'm passionate about all the industries that come with farming and agriculture, whether it's the PCA sales side, whether it's the tractor side, whether it's everything. I want everybody to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just because I don't buy a certain product, I don't want to see anybody fail.
Mm-hmm.
It might work for somebody else, but I want to see, and that's the thing with going back to Sigma is that's the thing that it doesn't just affect farming and agriculture and landowners. It affects all the industries that are indirectly involved, directly and indirectly involved, whether you're a salesperson, whether you're a tractor salesman, whether you're a manufacturer or a machinist or whatever, mechanic. It all plays a part. Trucking, and you're going to watch all the tax revenue go down in these in these
rural communities
because they're not going to have the work available.
Yeah. Have you already seen that happening?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can definitely see it happening. But then the government's solution to it all is, oh, we got a grant, so we're going to be able to fund and give people this, and this. Nobody wants a handout.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing more rewarding than going to work and collecting a paycheck and saying, I strived and I helped build this, or I helped do this.
Yeah, that's how this country was built.
That's how this country was built. My great-grandfather came here from Italy at 14 years old, and he didn't know, Northern Italy, and in 1914, and at 14 years old, and didn't know any English, but he came through San Francisco. Before he learned English, he learned Chinese because he worked in the Chinese restaurants.
Here in
San Francisco. San Francisco. So and then he started learning English and and everything else, but he worked his way up, you know what I mean? And just and then ended up moving down here because he met my great grandmother who was from down here, met her up in San Francisco, and that's how they.
So did he start the farming operation?
No, her family had always farmed. He took it over later on. Okay.
So then he got involved and kind of lived out the American dream.
Yeah, because our family still farms. We have I say our family, but I guess we have I don't know if it's 10 acres or 5 acres in northern Italy still. And
really?
It has olives, and it's all dry land farming, but it has olives and wine grapes and everything like that. Their area it's outside of Lucca, so he knew farming, but he didn't understand the row crop side. They were all olives and grapes and stuff like that.
Specialty stuff, especially in the 40s.
Yeah. No, not the early 1900s.
Oh.
So you're going way back. So everybody has a story. Everybody comes from somewhere. The generation before us set the foundation. It's up to us to carry it on. I feel like going back, so this is going to go back to water as well, is we've never made strides to do better in agriculture with water or with our infrastructures, or everyone always kept putting it on the back burner, or they just kept going, we'll go along to get along. We'll concede to this, but then if we concede to something, we would get stabbed in the back later on down the road because another lawsuit will come out or something will happen, So it's always, no, now we got to stand up, fight. And I say fight is do it through legislatively or through the courts and tell our story and tell our data. Our data will back us up. We have the data. It's just knowing how to use it and who wants to use it.
So you're involved in a lot of different things. You talked about before we came on the business. I've already forgot.
Central Valley Business Federation Board.
Okay. So what does that organization do exactly? It's not really just farming, right? It's everything.
It's everything. So we deal mainly. It's a lot with oil developers, energy, just anything with energy. Basically, a whole bunch of different industries together. And basically, what we do is we try to lobby on behalf of businesses in general, whether low taxes and everything else. And so we're always, but outside of that, we represent the Central Valley itself. So you have a BizFed LA, you have all these other areas, but BizFed LA doesn't necessarily agree with everything we do, right? So just like all the farm bureaus don't get along, don't necessarily agree. But at the same time, they have it. They have to work their area differently than we do. So based on their legislators and everything down there.
Do you guys work with young entrepreneurs as well in that organization?
Yeah. We work with anybody. So anybody who wants to become a member, anybody who wants to do things, So we work with everybody on there, and people and what we do too is, so like for agriculture, like I'll bring forward like, hey, BizFed needs to look at this bill because this is how it's going to affect agriculture and taxes and everything else, and we vote on it as a board whether we want to back it or sign on to it with other organizations or not, and then we'll talk with we have politicians that come talk to us, and we try to tell them, okay, this is the good and bad of your bill or the good and bad of the bill that's being presented to you.
So is there anything major right now that looks like it's coming down the pipeline?
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, you did have a Ramblers bill, which was going to do the solar and everything, which I think Farm Bureau was the only one against it, the only farming organization against it.
What was that going to do? NEM 2 then?
It was basically, it had to do with the Williamson Act.
Okay.
So if you were going to do solar on your farm because of Sigma, and you had nothing because of Sigma displacing you can't farm because you don't have enough water. So it gives you that exemption basically from the Williamson Act, and you have this small window to be able to get it exempt. But I think it got killed though in the last. I don't think it made it out of the last committee.
Okay.
So, but because if you're not farming your ground, the Williamson Act can be voided because it's all based on voided. So now solar, if you put solar on your property, are you going to be subjected to all those taxes?
So it was an exemption around that then?
Yeah, around that.
And Farm Bureau was against that?
Well, they were against it because all they saw was people were going to opt out of the Williamson Act. I think that's what they saw, but that's the narrow-mindedness of it all.
Wow. Is there anything else major that you've seen?
I mean, there's always water bills. Senator Tato has a bill that's, I think it's 1156, SB 1156. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But basically gives out more transparency on if you're on a water board making water decisions, you have to give a deeper financial record of where your income's coming from outside of that, which I think is huge coming from a state board or DWR, because now everybody's talking about water markets, right?
Yeah.
We have this water market on the stock, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're changing on futures.
Yeah, they're trying to, which doesn't make any sense because I trust me, I don't understand it. So I don't know how they get their numbers.
I don't understand how they're going to trade water, but
it doesn't make any sense. So, but anybody who has to deal with that or dealing with water in general and is sitting on a board, whether you're a district or a government agency, whatever it is, she wants a deeper dive into your financials to see where where income's coming in and make sure you're not getting influenced.
That sounds like actually a good thing, though.
It is. Senator Hurtado and I get along great. And people find that funny because I'm more of a conservative person. Mm-hmm. But Senator Hurtado and I, we don't agree on everything, but we agree on a lot of things. She is a genuine person. I can talk to her rationally. When we go to dinner, I talk to her rationally. We have we don't just talk about politics either. We talk about life, and we're just friends, And if I was closed-minded and didn't want to listen, I wouldn't have that friendship. And so that's why I try to be open-minded to everybody.
That's good. Hole split is right around the corner. Do you need an extra hand spraying? Maybe you don't have enough rigs to get to that last 100 acres, or maybe you don't have any rigs at all. Becerra Farm Services and the Ag Center are here to help. Give us a call and let's see how we can help you out with your hole split spraying this year. What advice do you have for these young entrepreneurs wanting to come out of college right now? Where's their spot in ag? I mean, it feels like the job market's rough right now for anyone coming out of college, even for anyone looking for a job right now. There's just less. Pay has honestly probably gone down if you look on the job market, because it's in a total employer market right now.
Well, I mean, create value for yourself. Don't just show up. So when I talk to college kids or high school kids, coming up, whether it's FFA or whatever, it doesn't have to be FFA. I've talked to kids and college kids too about show value. And the way you show value is don't just look at your job like I go back to your bubble. Look at your job out here. Like, how can I better the company in general? Like for me, it's like, I don't have my job just because I don't just have one hat. I wear multiple hats. But at the same time, I don't have to wear as many hats as I do, but I know it's going to better the company and it's going to better my life and it's going to better my employees' life.
Which makes you more valuable.
Which makes me more valuable. So it doesn't matter what job you're in, whether it's agriculture, whatever it is, don't just show up at a job and say, oh, my clock starts at 7 o'clock, so I'm starting at 7, I'm done by 4:30, that's the end of my day. No, I mean, show value. Like even if you're just starting out as a high school kid and you got a fast food, show up to work 30 minutes early and don't expect to get paid, but learn something out of it. Mm. You know, it's just those type of, like my dad, I mean, that's how I was raised. I was raised, you just go.
Yeah. I mean, today where people are sitting, I don't think they're showing up early and not expecting to be paid. Now it's just a lawsuit.
Yeah, exactly. But show value. Think outside. So if and also like I tell them, I go, if your boss is talking to another employee about something and you're like, oh, I might know something about that, don't just stay silent. Mm-hmm. Show value, because just because it's not your job, show value in helping that person or helping the company better, because you might have a connection somewhere. You might have this. That's how things get done, is thinking outside the box and always just being better prepared. I mean, am I perfect? No, I'm not perfect at all. I'm, like I said, I've trialed things and messed up on, and
yeah, we all do.
I mean, I'm not perfect at all, but I try to work really hard and just make everything around me better. That's the only thing. So like, for example, we bought, I own 4K speed tillers, right? Mm-hmm. They're discs, a certain type of disc.
Yeah.
So everybody wants to go bigger tractor, more horsepower, bigger implement, so I make less passes to the field, right?
Yeah.
I went completely opposite. So I looked at what we were doing. I'm going like, well, that tractor that we're running, 600 horsepower, I can only use it for that operation. If that tractor goes down, what am I going to replace it with?
So you did the opposite. You went small.
So we don't have anything over 400 horsepower, okay. 430 horsepower, whether it's track, wheel, whatever. And we have a whole bunch. But the other thing I was looking at is, how are we going to be efficient on the farm? How are we going to do more with less? So with those speed tillers that we have, whether it's a John Deere pulling it or whatever, it doesn't matter. I joke with people and I say I'm a brand whore. So it's just jokingly. So
yeah.
So but also it comes down to, so with that certain type of disc, I can run 8.5 miles an hour through I've gotten it up to 9 with me driving it, but 9 miles an hour through a field, and my fuel burn, and I'm making a 20-foot swath, and my fuel burn is like next to nothing per hour compared to a normal disc. And you don't have the figure eights, so with a speed in 8 hours, I'm covering over 100 acres. Where you took a normal offset disc or like a big stubble disc, you're lucky to get 50 to 60 acres done.
So you found it to be more efficient for employees out there in the field.
Yeah. And it's a learning curve. It's not like a normal, it takes the guys a while to get used to it, but I know how to operate it. And so I expect them to know how to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but it's just, how do we become, and that's a way we become more efficient. So like if my fuel burn, I think on those things, it's between 9 and 13 gallons an hour. Going that fast.
Wow.
And you could go to you see it operate on my webpage, on my social media, mm-hmm. and you see it's bringing it up, and we're making less passes, but we're also being more efficient in what we're doing to the ground, and we're able to get our turnaround faster behind wheat, planting, and everything, and pre-irrigation, everything like that.
Sounds like it's more operational efficiency when it comes to cash flow too, because you're covering more ground. You probably have a cheaper piece of equipment with less horsepower.
Yeah.
And your employees are spending less time on overtime.
Yeah. I mean, we still run overtime, but
Yeah.
but because we have so many acres to cover, but at the same time, we're able to cover more ground. And then, so when you have like on our 20-foot disc, I think there's 24 blades on it, 26 blades, something like that. Anyways, they're each individual blades, right? There's no gains, each one is different. Two guys took an hour and a half to replace all 24 blades on it, on that disc. That's the other efficiency side of it, is like they're sealed bearings. There's not a lot of maintenance to them. But at the same time, like I have a 370 I mean, it's a 370 horsepower tractor, but with that track tractor, I can still do other things with it. I can still plant with it. I can still do different things with it. I'm not having to have a big articulate or a big 500 horsepower tractor that is only doing basically one job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that comes down to a lot of inefficiency. I used to be a lot more in that world, and the hardest part to always account for was downtime.
Yep.
There's just repairs that have to be done. Whether it's for us up here, I mean, I'm more used to trees and things like that. So it's switch and shaker pads and things like that.
Right.
All the time that you just, you can't really account for. Sometimes things just happen in the field.
Yeah. And like I tell people in California, it's not always like, I know Wilcox will probably get mad at, but I got rid of my eliminator and that's why we got the Ecolo Tiger, I have two of those because I saw the efficiency, because the downtime was way less with that. And I didn't need a 500-600 horsepower to pull it. And I can pull it with a 430 horsepower Fendt, almost 7 miles an hour, and it discs and chisels at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, and people, and I'm not saying one's better than the other. Everyone's got a different operation. I'm saying this is what works for our operation, whether it's the tillage side or whatever it is. It's just, but I see the fuel consumption and everything else. That's what I'm looking at, is how do we better, and I think that's how we try to be better than everybody else, is just, we try to look at those efficiencies. We put up the capital to be able to make those improvements,
Yeah.
Each one of those discs are over $100,000.
Yep.
And on top of that, you have a $400,000 tractor pulling it,
Yeah. But if you're saving fuel, you're going to ROI that.
Yeah, you're going to ROI that real fast. So, and I've done the ROI. I mean, those things have paid themselves back already. You know what I mean? So, but like I said, it's whatever works for other people's operation. It's just like microbes. Like we use microbes on the dairy side, with the lagoon water and stuff. And we put fertilizers on ground where we don't put the lagoon water on, or blend it or whatever, everything like that. But the microbes, actually, we've seen a benefit out of it, and everyone's got their own microbe. Everyone's got their own biology, right? And everything else. But is it 100% of the way to go? No, because everyone wants to talk about regenerative. Everybody wants to talk about this. It's going to work for some people. It's not going to work for others.
Yeah.
Because everybody's in a different, if it works on your farm, great. If it, it didn't, I don't feel like it worked as well for us. Because I feel like in our soils, we have to run tillage because we have to open up that ground. Even if we call it, like, we plant all of our corn on the flat, I still run a flat sweep across the cornfields just to break that crust while it's still like that tall, like 6 inches tall. So that way we can, because there's nothing better than the air getting to those roots, and you help air it out. So you have less disease pressure. You have less, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that also goes back to why we invested into these speed tillers, is because most offsets just want to turn and put all the trash underneath the soil. Well, that creates a lot of, bacteria, disease, and everything else. And that could cause a lot of what this does is it chops it up, but it leaves it on top. And so it dries out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've made it to where I've made one pass and I've planted right behind it because it's left it so level.
Wow.
So those are the type of things that I'm always looking at. I don't know. I told someone tried to a microbiology. It was like 5 years ago or something. He came out and tried to give me a spiel on microbes and all this other stuff, and he told me flat out. He goes, "Your practices are just old school." And I was like, well, you don't know our operation, you know, so how can you tell me that? I would never go to somebody and tell them that they're old school, you know, because if they're successful, I mean, if they're still in business, they're sustainable. I think sustainable is the most overused word that we have in this industry or anything like that.
100%. The only thing sustainable is being profitable.
Being profitable and staying in business. So doesn't matter if I'm doing cover crops, microbes, or whatever, or it's conventional fertilizer. If I'm staying in business, I'm sustainable. And if people really want to talk about sustainability, I always laugh at organics because I'm actually I'm putting out less pollution and less carbon by spraying. I could spray, let's say with a 90-foot boom, I could spray 80 acres in 3 hours, probably 4 hours.
Yeah.
Well, if I had to send a hoeing crew with 30 different cars through there to go weed for a week straight, what's putting out less pollution?
Yeah.
Or less carbon.
Back to the sustainability being profitable too.
Exactly.
It's so expensive to put a hand crew in there now.
Exactly. So, but 30 different cars for 7 days,
yeah,
or one tractor in 4 hours.
So do you have a lot of I guess internal battle against organic and conventional?
I don't.
For yourself?
If organic, it goes back to that whole thing. I'm not telling anybody how to farm or whatever. Organic works for people. Great. Grimway does a great job. All the organic, Callow, they all do a great job in growing their organics. That is fantastic. I have nothing against it. I'm a capitalist.
Mm-hmm.
If it makes money, go for it. Because I'm not here to criticize. I don't criticize anybody on their practices or anything else because I don't know. You know what I mean?
There's a lot more to the equation.
There's a lot more to the equation, and that's also where people misunderstand is like I'm not just looking in my bubble. I'm looking outside the bubble all the time. I'm always looking at the bigger picture, and sometimes I overthink things, or I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning like, oh, that's a good idea. Or like, you know, and I'm on my computer on Google Earth looking at things or doing something. You know what I mean? It's just like, but it's just how I'm wired though. So but like my dad till this day, I'll give you this example. So my dad my parents live in town in the city limits. My dad is probably a 20-minute drive from the ranch,
mm-hmm.
from one of his ranches. He still gets up 3-4 times. He's 62 years old. He still gets up 3-4 times a night to go change hay water. and that's just because he doesn't trust anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because but that's all I knew growing up.
Yeah.
Was
Take care of it yourself.
Take care of it yourself. But also my dad did that my whole life growing up. Unless I was coming in when we got older, I was always coming in late or something like that. You'd be like, you want to go change my hay water? Yeah, I'll go change it. So, or something like, but growing up, that's all I know. I have 3 brothers and I have 2 of them that are in the ag industry. One's a sheriff in Kern County and runs the rural crimes division and everything. I am, compared to my brothers they were all football players. I was not a football player by any means. I had one brother played at Southern Utah University, offensive lineman and like 6'5". So, I mean, big guy. So
yeah,
and I'm the oldest, but I'm the smallest.
The genetics skipped you.
Yeah. I joke with everyone that I didn't get that Pasco gene. But that's, but you know what? I'm okay with it. I had to be on the farm because after I played sports all the way up until high school and all the way up until junior high, I should say. Once I got in high school, I had to be on the farm.
Yeah, immediately to work.
I had to because we were just a different time. My brothers, they were playing sports, but they were good at what they did, you know? So that was fine. I loved being on the farm. It's just, it doesn't matter if it's a Saturday, it doesn't matter if it's a Sunday. I got to go out and make rounds.
Wow.
Every day. And even if I'm out of town, I'm on the phone all the time.
Yeah.
It's just part of it. I mean, that's just part of it. I tell people it's not just a job, it's a lifestyle. But if you invest in that lifestyle, it will give you it's not going to be easy, but that lifestyle will invest back into you. And you'll be proud of what you built. It doesn't matter if you think I don't care if it's 5 acres or 1,000 acres or whatever it is. You invest in it, it will repay you back, and it'll pay you back in dividends because of the ability of what you learn and how to think outside the box too. because that's all farming is pivoting. That's the thing that people don't understand is you're always pivoting.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that at a very young age on whether you're setting water and everything. You know, not every set's going to be the same. So you're always dealing with pressures and you're always pivoting. Even whether it's moving equipment and not, you're always got to think outside the box. And
it moves fast.
It's very fast paced, and you're always. And there's times where I think I'm ahead, and my boss will call me and be like, "Oh, son of a gun, how did I miss that?" You know. And so I'm not perfect either, but it does. I try to, at the end of every season. Doesn't matter if it's wheat season, corn season. I tried my best. You know, if we had a lower yield on something, I mean, I try to go back and look at it and okay, why did we have a lower yield here? Why did we do this? What did we do wrong? Okay, we didn't do anything wrong. It was just because of this, and this. Okay, that makes sense. Sometimes it's out of our hands.
Yeah.
But we're always trying to be better in agriculture. Always trying to be practical, always trying to be mindful, but also it's not just about us as farmers and landowners and everything else. It's about our families. Because I want the next generation. My kids go out. My daughter, who's 9, went out with me all the time when she was younger. At 2 years old, she could tell you what thrips were and why they were good and bad.
She's already ready for her PCA exam.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and my son is the same way. Like, they walk into school, they go to St. Francis and they walk into school and they'll be talking about butterflies, and my son will be like, "My dad hates butterflies," you know, because of armyworms and stuff like that. So it's just, there's different things, but also, but I don't expect my kids to go into farming. I want them to understand the aspect, the culture of the guys that work for us, because my son hops in a tractor with some of the drivers and I'll take off for 30 minutes or an hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He has that relationship with them, you know. I have the same type of relationship, you know. It's just, that's how you learn. I understand the Hispanic culture better because I work with these guys. I understand how they think, how they operate, why they do certain things. It's not just, it's always about thinking outside the box.
Yeah. Hey, well, I appreciate you coming in and sharing a lot about yourself, some personal stuff, and just how you're constantly thinking outside the box. I mean, I'd love to come down and see your place sometime and how you're running things. It looks pretty incredible.
Yeah.
A lot of ground, a lot of areas. And
yeah, we farm a lot of areas, and I'm just blessed to be able to do what I do. And I'm blessed to have a boss that's willing to to be able to want to do what we do. And he's just, my boss is just like me. He's a farmer through and through. I know he hates being in the office as much as he is now, since, you know, but at the same time, he's a farmer through and through. He jokes with me all the time that he goes, "I'm not a board guy," but he goes, "I got to be on certain boards and you're on certain boards and stuff." But he always jokes. He goes, "I'd rather be out here." And I go, "I know, Rob, I know." So, but I'm blessed to work for someone like that, and to be able to utilize my talents and also, I mean, I work a lot, but I also have a lot of freedom too. You know, as long as stuff's getting done and I'm on. You know, there's different. It's a back and forth. It is a give and take.
Hey, well, I appreciate you coming in and sharing all your insights today. Hopefully we can do this again.
Yeah, anytime you want me back, I'm more than happy to come back.
Yeah. Well, hey, well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching The Toast. If you enjoy listening, like, subscribe, and comment. All those help us boost our audience so that more people can hear the messages and the stories that we have on this show. Now, if you know someone that might want to be a guest on The Toast, also DM us or email us, and let's see if we can work that out. Let's keep growing the agriculture community together.